1864, a 33-year-old woman named Rebecca Lee Crumpler became the first Black American woman to earn an MD. She earned her degree at a pioneering institution, the New England Female Medical College, which merged a decade later with Boston University to form Boston University's School of Medicine. Upon graduation, Dr. Crumpler continued to be a pioneer in the field of medicine by working for the newly formed Freedmen's Bureau. The Bureau was created at the end of the Civil War to serve recently freed enslaved people with medical and social services. Recognizing that there was a greater need than what the Bureau could serve, Dr. Crumpler published a book of medical discourses. Her book focused on preventing disease just as much as on curing it. She wrote using as few technical terms as possible to help make the book's lessons, which ranged from the right age to marry to breastfeeding, teething, dental hygiene, and many more, accessible. But the writing was also remarkable for what it didn't do. It didn't divide health along racial lines. It simply presented the best medical practices for the benefit of Black and white people alike. Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler's legacy was recently honored at a week-long celebration at Boston University's School of Medicine. The following clips are highlights of what we have learned from Dr. Crumpler's legacy.
There are not a ton of Black women in medicine. About 4 to 5% of physicians in medicine are of color. In academia, there are very few women of color academicians. Rebecca Lee Crumpler, in her own way, in writing books and coming back and teaching and trying to share her knowledge, was really one of the, not only the first Black female physician, but truly, I think, the first Black female physician academician.
Dr. Crumpler was just an example of what could be done. It was very clear that that example mattered.
She really demonstrated a tremendous amount of courage and the ability to overcome obstacles. She went to medical school during the Civil War. She actually graduated from medical school in 1865, prior to the end of the Civil War.
The story of Dr. Rebecca Crumpler is so important because when she got her degree from the now Boston University School of Medicine as the first African-American female physician, she then went to Virginia after the Civil War to help Black patients who had no health care. People would have died had she not gone to do that.
And when she went there, she almost described it as fertile ground to do her work when she realized how many underserved and indigent population was in that area.
The thing is around the time of the Civil War, doctors knew exactly what they needed to do to prevent outbreaks, including quarantining people who were sick, and they even had vaccination at that time. And they knew how to do these things. They also knew that poor nutrition and poor sanitation would worsen these outbreaks, but they didn't apply this knowledge evenly. So Black people during and after the Civil War had higher rates of death than white people. And Dr. Crumpler herself saw this disparity. And so in her book of medical discourse, she challenged this racial determinism of infections and proposed that poor living conditions and sanitation impacted practices that increased the risk of infection. And she advocated for better prevention techniques.
One of the great things we celebrate with Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler was the book she published, that she gave language, information, and provided the insights to the community in the way they were able to receive it. And she served as both as a filter, but really as a ladder to help people take care of themselves in an environment that wasn't allowing them to do that.
She was able to not only serve within that venue from her clinical practice, but also by offering things to the community through her writings to promote health education and medical education. And what it brings to mind is that as physicians, our roles are not narrowly focused. One of the panelists mentioned us as being leaders. And as leaders, we're able to make an impact in multiple areas.
That's why we need more of us. That's why Rebecca Crumpler was an amazing individual to set the path for us to come now. And so I'm just hoping that more and more people are able to follow our path. And if they need help, they reach out and keep striving.
Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler's legacy is extremely important. And, some of the struggles that she has, even though it's however many years later, we're still dealing with a lot of that. And so the strength that she had and finding her strength, should help all of us feel like we can conquer what it is that we want to conquer too.
But I want to encourage you to take heart. Don't be afraid to be a trailblazer in the situation that you're in. Don't lose heart. And just remember, obstacles can be overcome. Greet opposition as a welcome visitor who passes through but doesn't stay. Because when Dr. Crumpler got her position in the public health service during Reconstruction, and she really wasn't allowed to do some of the things that she frankly had purpose to do, she wrote her book anyway. So find a way forward, even if you meet some dead ends. Don't get discouraged, press on.
I hype my students up all the time. I tell them, look in that mirror. What are your daily affirmations? Tell yourself that you are the bomb. You got that Black girl magic. You're okay. Just like I'm sure Dr. Crumpler had to tell herself.
History actually provides a point of reference for belief, to actually look back and say, oh, I know that's possible because I have seen it. And part of what is really here in front of us today is a lot of that. And it's really incredible in holding on to belief.
It is important to have role models and people you can follow. But most important is to follow your dream. And just because you don't see somebody looking like you doing it before is no reason not to try. And what you have to do is to be the best at what you're doing. No matter what you're doing, be the best. And it will be recognized. I mean, when Rebecca Crumpler over 100 years ago stepped into medical school, there was nobody like her around. She did. Nobody published a book. She went ahead. She published a book. And so don't let anything stop you from doing good.
I have to be hopeful that we will continue to have more physicians in honor of our first Black female physician in the United States, Dr. Rebecca Crumpler.
It's sometimes just very helpful to know that history is literally on your side. It's a hard history, not always on your side, but if we find those examples, we can be inspired by them. Celebration of Dr. Crumpler is hugely important.
Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler was able to study at the New England Female Medical College because of a scholarship. She was a pioneer not only for her advancement within the fields of family medicine and women's health, but for her trailblazing accomplishment of becoming the first Black woman physician in America. Although she encountered unimaginable racism, prejudice, and hostility, she persisted and discovered her life's mission of increasing health and combating illness in women and children. For all these reasons, we seek to honor her memory with a scholarship fund in her name. The newly established Rebecca Lee Crumpler Scholarship pays tribute to Dr. Crumpler's incredible pioneering spirit and dedication to patient care and education. This scholarship will allow Black and Latinx students, particularly Black women, to obtain an outstanding medical education at BUSM and not be hindered by economic barriers. We invite you to support this scholarship and join us in keeping her legacy alive.